Clara, a young woman in her mid-20s, grew up in a dysfunctional home where love was scarce and emotional support even more so. Her father was emotionally distant and her mother, though loving, was overwhelmed by life's struggles. Clara's family often seemed broken, a portrait of pain she could never escape. From an early age, Clara learned to fend for herself, hiding her emotions and pushing down her longing for affection. She witnessed endless fights between her parents and often found herself in the middle, comforting her younger siblings. This environment shaped her understanding of love. Love wasn't safe, it was conditional and complicated. Clara, at 22, was naive about love. Her childhood had been filled with emotional neglect, so when Ethan came into her life, he seemed like a beacon of light in a sea of uncertainty. He was charismatic, charming, and made Clara feel seen in ways she had longed for. They met at a mutual friends gathering, and Ethan was quick to show interest, showering her with attention. To Clara, it felt like the first time someone truly cared. He was the kind of person who could talk for hours, pulling her in with his stories and making her feel like the center of his world. Ethan was quick to make Clara feel like she was special, but this attention came with a price. Early on, Clara noticed that Ethan could switch from being loving to cold and distant in an instant. It was as if he needed her to feel completely dependent on him. During one of their first dates, he would dismiss her opinions in front of their friends, joking about her overthinking things or laughing off her concerns.
You take things too seriously, Clara. It's just a joke, why are you getting so worked up?
At first, Clara brushed it off, thinking it was just his sense of humor. But the frequency of these moments started to increase. One evening, when Clara shared something personal, a deep fear she had about her future, Ethan responded in a way that made her feel small.
Wow, that's pretty pathetic. Don't worry though, I'll be here to fix everything. You don't need to think so much, I've got it all figured out.
Clara laughed awkwardly, but inside she felt a chill. Still, she rationalized his behavior, thinking that maybe he was just more confident than she was. As time went on, Ethan began subtly undermining her choices. When Clara received a promotion at work, Ethan acted as if it was no big deal, downplaying her accomplishments and shifting the focus back to himself. He would often make her feel like she wasn't living up to his expectations. But the cycle of love and control continued. When he would apologize for his behavior, Clara, wanting to keep the peace, forgave him, hoping that their relationship could return to the happiness she had originally felt. Ethan, in a sincere, apologetic tone.
I didn't mean it, Clara. I just get frustrated sometimes. You know I love you, right?
It was this pattern of praise and degradation that kept Clara trapped, constantly hoping that the man she loved would return to the charming person he had been in the beginning. And with each cycle, the emotional manipulation tightened its grip. Clara's childhood friend, who had been a constant support even during the hardest times. Linda had always been the more grounded one, raised in a stable home with strong values. She noticed Clara's change over the past year, how Clara had become quieter, more withdrawn, and how her bright smile was replaced with an anxious expression. One evening, while Clara was sharing yet another story about Ethan's unpredictable behavior, Linda could no longer remain silent.
Clara, I need you to hear me. What you're going through is not love. This isn't healthy. Ethan is hurting you and you're allowing it. You deserve better than this. You deserve someone who will lift you up, not tear you down.
But you don't understand, Linda. If I leave him, I'll be alone forever. He's the only one who's ever made me feel loved. He said he loves me, and I believe him.
Clara, love doesn't come with conditions. Love doesn't come with lies and emotional manipulation. You were never meant to live in a cage, even if it's made of promises and illusions.
Linda's words hit Clara hard, but she felt a stirring of something she hadn't felt in months, hope. But at the same time, fear gripped her. What if Linda was wrong? What if she really couldn't survive without Ethan? The next few weeks were tumultuous. Clara found herself constantly walking on eggshells around Ethan, never knowing when the next emotional outburst would come. Ethan's narcissism was becoming more apparent. He would belittle her achievements, make her feel inadequate, and blame her for everything wrong in their relationship. One evening, after another heated argument, Ethan stormed out, leaving Clara alone in their apartment. As she sat on the couch, tears streaming down her face, Clara realized something. She wasn't living anymore. She was just surviving. She wasn't thriving in love, she was drowning in it.
I didn't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, I stopped being me. I was no longer the girl who loved life. I was the girl who was afraid of being alone, afraid of being unloved. But that night, sitting in the silence, something inside me started to break free.
As Clara sat in her apartment after the argument, the pain of the past year came crashing down on her. Ethan had stormed out, but Clara felt the weight of his emotional tirade lingering in the room. She had finally reached a breaking point. The toxic relationship had slowly chipped away at her sense of self-worth, but now, there was a burning desire for something more, something real.
I thought I couldn't live without him. He had convinced me that no one would ever love me again. But something inside me snapped that night. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep giving him pieces of myself, only to be left broken in the end.
But Clara's resolve to leave was not going to be easy. Ethan wasn't going to let her go without a fight. He had always been manipulative, and this time, his narcissistic tendencies would show themselves in full force. When Clara told Ethan she was leaving, his response was not one of regret or sorrow, but one of anger and desperation. He turned the situation against her, accusing her of being selfish and ungrateful.
You're throwing everything away, Clara. You think you'll be better off without me? You're nothing without me. If you leave, you'll never find anyone who will love you the way I have.
He raged, pacing around the apartment, and for a moment, Clara felt that old familiar fear creeping back into her heart. She had heard this from him before. How no one else could love her, how she'd be alone forever. He started with guilt, making her question her decision.
You know you'll regret this. You'll be crying on your knees, wishing you had me back. I'm the best you're ever going to get, Clara. No one else will want you. I will make sure of that.
Clara's heart pounded as his words echoed in her ears. She had to leave, but the fear of being alone, and the fear of being judged by others, made her hesitate. But Ethan's narcissism wasn't finished. After threatening to ruin her life, he shifted tactics. He began to play on her insecurities, begging her to stay and promising he would change.
Clara, don't do this. You know I love you. You're all I've got. Please don't leave me. I can't live without you.
Clara felt torn. She could see the manipulation in his eyes, but the desperation in his voice pulled at her heartstrings. For a moment, she almost relented. But deep down, she knew that what he was offering wasn't real love. It was a demand for control. Over the next few days, Clara tried to leave several times, but Ethan's psychological hold on her kept pulling her back. He would call incessantly, send countless texts, and show up at her apartment with flowers, acting as if nothing had happened. It felt like the emotional roller coaster never stopped. He would cry, apologize, and promise change, and then, just as easily, turn back into the manipulative person he had always been. On one occasion, Ethan even showed up at Clara's job, waiting outside for her, insisting they needed to talk. When she refused to see him, he told their colleagues she was overreacting and that they were fine, hoping to turn people against her. Clara was mortified, and the stress of it all made her second-guess her decision. But Linda, her unwavering friend, was a constant source of support. Every time Clara felt weak, Linda was there to remind her of the truth.
You are not his prisoner, Clara. He is not your savior. Don't go back to what is familiar. Go back to what is healthy. Go back to you.
With Linda's encouragement, Clara finally found the strength to make the call that would change everything. On the evening Clara finally decided to take the leap, she felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. Ethan had left her another voicemail, asking her to reconsider. He was full of promises again. But Clara didn't listen to it. This time there would be no turning back. She had seen enough of his manipulation to know it would never end unless she made a clean break. That night, as Ethan came to her apartment one final time, Clara stood at the door and looked him in the eye.
I'm done, Ethan. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, and the promises you never keep. I'm walking away from you. No more games, no more empty words. I'm doing this for me.
Ethan's face twisted with rage, but Clara stood firm. For the first time in their entire relationship, she didn't feel afraid. She felt empowered.
You're nothing without me. You'll regret this.
But Clara didn't flinch. She closed the door behind her, locking it. For the first time she was free. In the days following her break from Ethan, Clara struggled with the emptiness of her decision. She missed him at times, his calls, his presence, but deep down she knew she had made the right choice. Every day, as she slowly rebuilt her life, she found new strength. With Linda by her side, Clara began to heal, learning to trust herself again, learning that she was enough, and that no one, especially not Ethan, could define her worth. The journey wasn't easy, but with each step, Clara came closer to the woman she had always been destined to become. Strong, independent, and loved. Not by others first, but by herself. Over the next few months, Clara embarked on a journey of healing. She spent time alone, rediscovering her passions and reconnecting with her faith. Slowly, the pieces of her broken heart began to mend. She learned to enjoy her own company, to appreciate the love of friends, and to understand that love, true unconditional love, came first from within. One day, while at a cafe with Linda, Clara smiled as she looked out the window, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face.
I thought I'd never get here, Linda. I thought I was too broken to heal. But I'm learning. I'm learning to love myself again. And that's enough.
I always knew you'd get here, Clara. And when you do, you'll see that the best love, the purest love, comes when we finally understand how to love ourselves first.
Months passed, and Clara became stronger, more confident, and more radiant than ever before. She wasn't perfect. There were days when the pain of the past would resurface, but she knew she was no longer defined by her toxic relationship. She had become a survivor, a woman who had faced her fears, stood her ground, and learned the most important lesson of all. Self-love is the foundation for everything else.
If this story resonated with you, know that you are not alone. No one deserves to be trapped in a toxic relationship. Real love should uplift, not destroy. If you or someone you know is struggling, don't be afraid to reach out for help. There is hope, there is healing, and there is freedom on the other side of fear. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of this story spoke to you the most? Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more powerful stories, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next life-changing video. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your story isn't over yet. Your breakthrough is coming. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and always remember, you deserve real love. See you in the next video.